On October of 2015, SUNY Geneseo cross-country coach Dan Moore competed in the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii. For those that don't know, an Ironman consists of a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and 26.2-mile run. After a strong 2.4-mile swim, Coach Moore transitioned into the bike ride. As he was cruising down a hill at about 20 miles an hour, he hit a bump, went flying through the air, and landed right on his hip. The wound was red, it was swollen, and it hurt just to move. But Coach Moore, he got up, finished the bike ride, and through a combination of jogging and hobbling, got through 26.2 miles of running. 26.2 miles. When I first heard this story, I was baffled. How could Coach Moore, how could anybody have done such a feat? Well, Coach Moore, he would go on to later tell us that his sister had recently passed away, and he had decided to dedicate everything in that race to her. Every step that he ran, every cycle that he pedaled, and every stroke that he swam, it would be for her. Coach Moore had found his why, that reason outside of just doing it, that reason that allowed him to overcome the pain, those defining moments where he wanted to give up the most, where the pain was the worst. It was that why that guided Coach Moore through that race. My name is Alan, and I'm a runner. As I progressed through the years, I've always searched for ways to make my races faster. But it seemed like whenever I got to the middle of that race, whatever race, when I got to those defining moments where it hurt the most, something in me would give. My reason for being out there to just run would fall apart in the face of that pain, in the face of that defining moment. When my coach, she would ask me, "Alan, how bad do you want it?" I wouldn't have an answer. In other words, I was facing something that a lot of runners today face. I call it the runner's dilemma. What is our reason for putting ourselves out there, for making us stand such pain over miles of distance? Well, after hearing Coach Moore's story, I was inspired to find my own why. But it was hard for me to relate to such an extraordinary reason for running. So I sought to find examples closer to me in my own community. I found it in my coach, Coach Rolls. Coach Rolls is a fantastic coach. She spends hours creating individualized training plans for the 40-plus guys on the cross-country and track team. She sacrifices time for herself and for her family, for us, just to help us get faster. But a lot of the times, Coach Rolls, she doesn't get what she puts out back. A lot of the times, guys on the team, they're not there to get faster. They're there to just have fun, goof around, and all of Coach Rolls' work goes to waste. I would often ask Coach Rolls, how do you stand it? How do you stand coming back after an entire team of guys that you dedicated hours to doesn't care? Well, Coach Rolls, she would tell me that it's the feeling of helping just one person. Whether it's in cross-country, track, or even just gym class. It's that feeling of helping just one person that keeps Coach Rolls going, that allows her to overcome her own defining moments. It allows her to overcome those moments where one of her athletes has a horrible race. He walks up to her after the race, looks her right in the eyes, and blames her for his terrible performance. It's that why that keeps Coach Rolls coming back year after year after year. So after hearing about and understanding Coach Rolls' why, I started searching for my own. This past indoor track season, I was plateauing. My race times just weren't getting any faster. It seemed like I was training harder than I'd ever been before, but my time stayed stagnant. They were not getting faster. And I started losing faith in myself. I lost faith in my training in my coach. And I told my coach this. I told her, maybe it's just me, maybe it's my genetic predisposition, I'm a short Asian kid, maybe this is the peak of running that I'll ever get to. But my coach, she looks me in the eyes and she said, Alan, you might not ever get faster, but if you stop believing, you never will. And that is my why. It's to never stop believing. It's to never stop believing in my coach, my teammates, my training, and myself. It's that why that allows me to, when I'm in the middle of those races, when I'm facing those defining moments, and my coach, she asked me, Alan, how bad do you want it? I can tell her, more than the pain. I carry that why with me, both in and out of running. Now, having a why, also known as deep intrinsic motivation, has been found to actually correlate with success in life. Yale professor Amy Wierzbicki conducted a study on 11,320 West Point cadets. She assessed their motivations over a 14-year period. She found that the cadets that were intrinsically motivated, that had that why, were more likely to graduate, more likely to receive promotions, and more likely to become commissioned officers. And it makes sense. Everyone, not just runners, needs that why because everyone faces those defining moments. I witnessed a great example of this outside of running on a recent trip to Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel. Nowadays, it has become a tourist hotspot where people from all across the nation come to honor the legacy of a great man. But as you pull in to the Lorraine Motel, at a nearby street corner, you'll see a woman. She's there with several tables there. She's sitting there protesting the gentrification of the Memphis area, and how instead of providing affordable housing to the low-income, predominantly African-American residents in the area, it represents this gentrification. She's been there for over 30 years. 30 years. And she's not there for herself. She's there for her people, a reason bigger than just herself. That is her why. That why that allows her to get outside and sit at those tables even when it's pouring rain and thundering outside. That's her why. Another great example of this can be found in the 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt lived something he called the strenuous life. He has written that I don't know how people do feel. I only know how they ought to feel. Now, this reflects the strong moral backgrounds that guided everything Theodore Roosevelt did in life. That was his why, those moral teachings that his father gave him. We see this reflected in his actions as a president, his foreign policy. We see this in the Roosevelt Corollary, in the 1905 negotiation of a peace treaty, in the Russo-Japanese War, which earned him the Nobel Peace Prize. So, how do you find your own why? Well, looking at these modern day and historical examples, one thing is clear. Other people matter. When you're searching for that why, it can't be about yourself. It's got to be about a bigger group of people. It makes that why stronger when it's not just centered around the individual. In today's society, especially in regards to motivation, when we're asking ourselves, why do I do things? It's easy to just look at yourself, but broadening that scope, looking at the people around you, keeping in mind that other people matter, creates that strong, lasting why. Randy Pausch was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and he gave a lecture where he described his own version of defining moments. He called them brick walls. Randy Pausch said that everyone faces these brick walls, no matter if you're an athlete, if you're a student, if you're a musician, or even just a regular office worker. But Randy Pausch says that these brick walls are good because they keep the people who don't want it bad enough out. So go out, find your why. So the next time you're faced with a defining moment, a brick wall, and you're asked how bad do you want it, you can say more than the pain. Thank you.